Ever wondered how the universe really works? Or what secrets history left behind? You are about to find out. The year is 1193. A column of 200 horsemen rides toward the greatest university the world has ever known. Nalanda. 10,000 students. 9 million manuscripts. 3 library buildings, each 9 stories tall. In a few hours, it will all be gone. Burned. The monks, massacred. The knowledge, lost for centuries. But what if, standing at the gates that morning, there was one defender with a weapon no one in that century could understand? To understand what was at stake, you need to understand what Nalanda was. Founded in the 5th century, Nalanda was not just a monastery. It was the world's first residential university. At its height, over 10,000 students and 2,000 teachers lived and studied here. They came from Tibet, China, Korea, Central Asia, and Southeast Asia. The curriculum covered everything: mathematics, astronomy, medicine, philosophy, logic, grammar, and metaphysics. The library was called Dharmaganja, meaning Treasury of Truth. It had 3 multi-story buildings, the tallest reaching 9 stories. Scholars estimate it held 9 million manuscripts. For context, the Great Library of Alexandria may have held around 400,000 scrolls. Nalanda held roughly 20 times more. This was not just a school. It was the intellectual engine of an entire civilization. In 1193, Bakhtiyar Khilji, a Turkic military commander, rode into Bihar with a remarkably small force. Around 200 cavalrymen. That is it. 200 men on horseback against an undefended university. The monks had no weapons. No walls thick enough to stop cavalry. No military training. The attack was swift and brutal. Khilji's men cut down the monks, many of whom were mistaken for priests with shaved heads. Which is exactly what they were. When Khilji asked about the books, he was told they were religious texts. He ordered them burned. The library burned for approximately 3 months. 3 months. Let that settle. An entire civilization's intellectual output, reduced to ash over 90 days. Now here is our thought experiment. What if one person, standing at the main gate of Nalanda that morning, had a modern machine gun? Not a pistol. Not a single-shot musket. A bell-fed light machine gun with 1,000 rounds of ammunition. That is enough firepower to fight for hours. Could one machine gun have stopped 200 cavalrymen? Let us think about this. Khilji's force was small. 200 horsemen, not 2,000. They were raiders, not a siege army. They expected zero resistance. That is crucial. They had never encountered gunpowder, let alone automatic fire. The sound alone would be unlike anything in their world. Not a single crack, but a continuous roar of thunder that does not stop. The first 10 riders falling from their horses in 2 seconds, with no arrow, no spear, nothing visible, would create absolute chaos. Horses are prey animals. They bolt at loud, unfamiliar sounds. A machine gun does not give them time to recover. It is relentless. Let us be precise. A modern light machine gun like the M249 fires around 750 rounds per minute. That is 12 rounds every single second. At the engagement range of a cavalry charge, 50 to 100 meters, even with rough aim, the hit rate against a mass of horses and riders is devastating. In the first 10 seconds, over 100 rounds go downrange. Even at a conservative 25% hit rate, that is 30 riders down before anyone understands what is happening. But here is the real advantage. A machine gun does not run dry after a few shots. With 1,000 rounds, our defender can sustain fire for over a minute of continuous shooting, or fight in controlled bursts for hours. Khilji's horsemen were experienced fighters, but they fought enemies they understood. Swords, arrows, spears. A weapon that cuts down men continuously, with a sound like the sky is tearing apart, breaks every mental model they have. There is no regrouping against this. There is no second charge. The cavalry that approaches the gates simply ceases to exist. 200 horsemen against a machine gun is not a battle. It is a mathematical certainty. One machine gun does not win a war. But it does not just win this battle. It annihilates Khilji's entire raiding force. And that changes everything that comes after. Now let us talk about what the fire actually destroyed. This is where the story becomes genuinely tragic. Nalanda's library did not just hold Buddhist philosophy. It held centuries of accumulated knowledge in mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and logic. Indian mathematicians had developed the concept of zero, the decimal system, and early algebra. Nalanda was one of the centers where this knowledge was taught, refined, and transmitted to the wider world. The astronomer Aryabhata, who calculated the Earth's circumference to within 1% accuracy, studied in the Nalanda tradition. Medical texts described surgical procedures, herbal treatments, and anatomical knowledge that was centuries ahead of Europe. And this was not just Indian knowledge. Scholars from across Asia came, studied, contributed, and carried ideas back. Nalanda was a node in a global knowledge network. When it burned, the network lost its central hub. Vikramashila, the other great university, was destroyed in the same campaign. The institutional backbone of Buddhist scholarship in India was gone. So what happens in our alternate timeline? Khilji does not retreat. He cannot retreat. His entire force is destroyed at the gates. Word of this spreads fast. A force of 200 horsemen rode to Nalanda and not a single man came back. No commander in the region dares approach. But the machine gun does something more than win one battle. It buys time. And time is everything. The monks of Nalanda now understand they are a target. They have seen war come to their door. In the months that follow, walls are built. A militia is trained. Other universities, Vikramashila, Odantapuri, hear what happened and begin to fortify. The machine gun started it, but the real defense becomes institutional. Now here is where it gets truly interesting. If Nalanda survives, Buddhism retains its institutional base in India. The religion does not disappear from the land of its birth. That alone reshapes Asian history. But the intellectual consequences might be even larger. The 13th and 14th centuries were the height of the Islamic Golden Age. Scholars like Al-Khwarizmi and Ibn Sina were pushing the boundaries of mathematics and medicine. Now imagine a surviving Nalanda exchanging ideas with Baghdad, with Cordoba. Indian mathematics meeting Islamic algebra. Indian medicine meeting Persian pharmacology. This kind of cross-pollination is exactly how scientific revolutions happen. Europe's Renaissance was fueled by the rediscovery of Greek texts preserved by Islamic scholars. Now add Indian texts to that mix, texts that were actually more advanced in several fields. The decimal system reached Europe through Islamic scholars who learned it from Indian sources. If Nalanda survived, that pipeline would have been wider, faster, and richer. Could we have seen an earlier scientific revolution? It is speculative, but the ingredients were there. How would modern India look different? Buddhism surviving as a major institutional force would change Indian society profoundly. The caste dynamics, the philosophical landscape, the relationship between religion and education, all would evolve differently. Nalanda as a continuous institution for 800 more years would be the Oxford or Cambridge of Asia, with an 800-year head start. India's role in the global intellectual tradition would be fundamentally different. Not as a civilization that lost its greatest library, but as one that kept it burning, in the other sense of the word. Of course, one gun is a thought experiment. The deeper lesson is about vulnerability. Nalanda was the most important center of learning on Earth, and it had no defenses. Not because the knowledge was not valuable, but because the people who held it did not believe they needed to defend it. Today, Nalanda is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. In 2014, a new Nalanda University was established near the ancient ruins. It is a small gesture, but it matters. The real message of Nalanda is not about what one weapon could have done. It is about what we lose when we fail to protect knowledge. Libraries burn. Manuscripts decay. Institutions fall. The lesson from 1193 is simple. Knowledge that is not defended is knowledge that is lost. And that is the story of Nalanda. If you learn something new, subscribe and hit the bell. Drop a comment telling us what other moments in history you would change with one piece of modern technology. See you in the next one. If you enjoyed this, smash that subscribe button and hit the bell. New science and history videos every week. See you in the next one.